Hello everyone, this is LW Gaming and welcome to a brand new installment, or I should say returning installment for Global. This time we're going to talk about the update featuring Rapier and Sharikh, and this will be available early for those who are the members. But to those who are waiting for around the last week of the current mage update of Fairy Tail, everyone should be able to watch this. So anyways, let's get right into what these two characters are. So Rapier and Sharikh are coming to the game. I hope I pronounced the word Sharikh right, otherwise if that was like a mispronunciation, I apologize, but I'll just call him Sharikh for time being. But first, let's talk about the other characters I'm going to talk about here. So this is Rapier. So you might be thinking, why is her name like this? Well, honestly, to myself, I have no clue, but I mean, that's what she was named in the original source, in the Wonder Swan game. And by the way, those two are from Wonder Swan, if you're wondering. So anyways, Rapier, her name is based on a sword, which is of course Rapier, like a very sharp sword used for like precision, I believe. So anyways, let's talk about what factions she's part of. So her factions are Princess Alliance, Empire's Honor, and US Legends. And as for the classes, she has infantry and cavalry. And her talent is called Ambition to Conquer. Attack and defense is increased by 10 to 25%. At the end of the turn, select one enemy and inflicts Justice Duel on them for 2 turns. And by the way, the Justice Duel is a mark that cannot be dispelled or even ignored on the or even can be ignored through like an immunity or something. It's just gonna apply to them no matter what. When the unit actively uses a skill to attack any enemy other than Rapier, they lose 5 dispellable buffs before entering combat. And there's a trigger cooldown on this thing, which can only be triggered once every 42 turns. And that means that you cannot get Justice Duel on them until like a certain amount of turns, of course. So for the best of the performance out for Rapier is that she needs to be at 5 or 6 stars in order to capitalize her abilities. When any ally engages in combat against the enemy with Justice Duel, Rapier teleports to the nearest empty block and near the ally and can act again if she has already acted this turn. The extra action effect can only be triggered once per turn for balancing. And the Justice Duel cannot be dispelled or immune to, which is I already explained earlier. And when Rapier is fighting against an enemy with Justice Duel, the enemy cannot attack first and cannot trigger revive effects. And the revive disable only applies to PvP mode, which most of the revive disablers only affect in PvP. PvE is just not going to be like that. So, yep, she's more suited for PvP as far as I noticed. So, as soon as I saw the talent that says like the revive disable, that's already an indication that she is capable of taking out certain tanks, and also maybe even Dragon Slayer if you do it right. Now let's talk about what her unique skills are. So her unique skills, 1C skill called Iron Resolve. It's a passive skill. When fighting an enemy affected by Justice Duel, Rapier's all stats except HP increase by 15%, and before combat, dispels all debuffs from herself and copies all dispellable buffs from the target enemy. So basically this includes any buffs that your opponent has, like it could be a faction buff, it could be any stat increase, or any buffs that are really useful, as long as they're dispellable. If they're not dispellable, then you won't be able to copy those. So for example, Rapier can become any factions, like buffed by any factions, of course, which makes her somewhat vulnerable to fight against. So beware of Rapier if she's on the field. And then her 2C skill called Battlefield Banner is a 3 turn cooldown, 3 blocks range, and it's a 3 blocks AoE. And this does physical damage. Deals 0.36 times AoE damage to multiple enemies within range, which is 3 blocks of the radius. All enemies hit are teleported near the target location, and a Battlefield Banner special terrain effects is created at the target location for 1 turn, which is pretty interesting to have there. And what this Battle Banner does is a command. All enemies within 2 blocks are afflicted with defense minus 10%. Enemies will consume 1 additional mobility when moving out of command range. At the end of their action, enemies will lose 2 random buffs if positioned in the command range. Enemies with Justice Duel are teleported to the center first and the above effects are doubled. And then the Battlefield Banner has a higher terrain priority and overwrites effects. So basically, it will overwrite anything that's like a high priority. That means that Jace's tiles can be overwritten. And I believe Ilia's, not Ilia's stays on there all the time, so that does not count. So anything that considered as high priority could get overridden by this, so be aware of that. And last but not least, we got 3C skill called Falling Sword of Final Battle. It's a 4-turn cooldown, 1 block range, and it's a single target. The passive part of this skill is that when actively attacking an enemy with Justice Duel, damage dealt in combat is increased by 25%. So she will hit harder against Justice Duel opponents. So if you worry about her not doing enough damage, this passive could probably just fix that issue of if you think about like if she's being too weak against tanks. Well, she's capable of taking out tanks because that's what her talent does, like disable revives against dual opponents. And now let's talk about the active skill of this 3C. So this attacks one enemy, dealing 1.8 times damage. If there's an enemy affected by Justice Duel within 3 blocks of Rapier, that enemy is forced into combat against her. If no Justice Duel target is nearby, damage taken is reduced by 25% during combat. If this skill eliminates an enemy, restores 30% HP to herself after ending action. And this skill's cooldown is reduced by 4 turns, which means you will use this skill right off the bat after you defeat an enemy. If the enemy have Justice Duel, upon defeating that enemy, copy 3 of Rapier's dispellable buffs to all Empire's Honor allies, and removes the trigger cooldown from her talent. So this 3C is pretty unique, unlike any other that we had so far. So this one, well, I should say like Elwyn's probably the first one to introduce like faction that can buff Empires too, but that one's actually via casting skill, but this is actually a 3C natural effects in there. So what happened when I'm seeing her is that if you kill the enemy, she's gonna get 30% of her HP back after finishing her turn, and also you get this skill back immediately. But however, for the next time you use it, you'll be able to use it again. And also if the enemy have like a Justice Duel effect, and then when you defeat that enemy, you're gonna copy 3 of the three of your own buffs that are dispellable to all your Empire units, which is absolutely insane. And it could be good in many ways. So this unit encourages you to build a team based around Empire to use her effectively, or you can just choose not to do that and just go in with a meta team if you prefer. But yeah, I can tell Empire is going to be really strong with Rapier added to your roster with this one. Now let's move on to the bonds. So for herself, she needs Zion for defense bond, and then for attack bond, you need to upgrade her class to infantry, the final class for infantry. As for the others, Rapier is not needed for anyone else's bonds, at least for now. We'll inform you all if we get any more info about Rapier's requirements. So for now, if you want to build Rapier really well, you need Zion for your collection, for her bonds, of course. And then for attack bond, you just easily just get her class, and that's it. So like now, the new units nowadays only require you with just 1 unit, which is a nice thing to have, because I mean, at least for the Millennium characters. But I don't know about the OC characters, like the Tolivar characters. I think they still follow this, but at the same time, I'm thinking they can still go back to the route of like 2 units for one bond unit. But I'm not sure if they're gonna do that. But for now, it's nice to see that they're only gonna have 1 bond only locked onto 1 character. But for collapse, it's always been like no characters will be locked behind this. So yeah, we'll see how it goes in the future for time being, because as far as I know, there's only 1 character locking the bond for a specific one. So alright, I wrap a lot. I too much already, so I'm gonna move on. So the uses for this unit for PvE and PvP. For PvE, she is pretty strong addition, but however, excluding the fact she does not do Revive Disable for PvE. Also, even though she doesn't do that on there, but however, her other part of talent, which, well, I should say her 3C to be exact, that one is actually going to make her really strong to deal with. So like, like those NPCs, they're not meant to be strong, but if you have them with Justice Duel, and then you have your 3C equipped, those enemies are gonna be forced to enter combat against Rapier, which is actually pretty nuts. And this can also apply to PvP, because that effect is still effective here. As for PvP, her role is a tank killer, or known as Dragon Slayer killer, and also fragile units nightmare. So you could imagine that you could put the Justice Duel on healers that you wanted to kill with Rapier. She's gonna do the job just fine against those opponents. As for the weapon, I can think of think of her using like using the Crystal Stinger to ensure she can kill anybody that she wants. But of course, there are other options you can go for, so you don't have to stick with that one. But if you prefer to go in and do some damage against tanks, Crystal Stinger is actually excellent to have. And as for the how much is this character worth it, I would say it's a hard yes, because she is really good in many fronts. But if you're not planning to go for her, again, it's totally fine, because she's not going to be leaving the pool. She'll just be in the off banner pool when her banner leaves. So if you're into like someone like Revive Disable, or if you miss Urza when she was around, Rapier is actually a good alternative for that. It's just that you don't have to worry about yourself being outnumbered, because Urza favors outnumbered scenarios. But for Rapier, she can just do it as long as they have duel. And of course, she's a hard counter against tanks, including Dragon Slayer, and can easily force fragile enemies into combat when they're close to her, and neutralizes enemies' first strike effects only when she attacks actively. So like if your opponent had Dragon Slayer, and normally Dragon Slayer has like more HP than Rapier, he's not gonna take advantage of that against Rapier, because she's gonna stop him from doing the first strike. So if you're fighting against Dragon Slayer for whatever match you're in, she's an excellent tool to counter against him. Next up we got is Sharikh. Sharikh? I'll call him Sharikh for now. So Sharikh has like three different factions: Dark Incarnation, Meteor Strike, and Ulez Legends. And the classes he has are Assassin and Cavalry. And also, you may notice that Sharikh is like more like a jester or some kind of character, like archetype, I believe. But anyways, his is actually pretty interesting. So his capitalizes fixed damage, as far as I noticed. So his talent, called Agonized Cackle, attack and crit increased by 10 to 25% based on star level. And also, even though he has a range class, he ignores melee damage penalty. So if your opponent tries to attack him in close range, he's gonna still deal full damage against them. So yep, be careful when you're fighting against Sharikh. And this only applies if he's an assassin or like any ranged class in general. I don't think he's a ranged class as a cavalry, but I might be wrong here. But we'll see when they arrive. But if they're both ranged, then that would be interesting. When actively attacking and dealing damage, inflicts Agonized Cackle on the enemy, which will basically make them suffer more crit of 20%. After taking damage, unit suffers an additional fixed damage equal to 1 times of his attack. For every 25% HP lost, the damage multiplier increases by 0.5 times up to max of 2 times. Lasts 2 turns and cannot be dispelled. So the last part that says for every 25% loss. So basically, like the weaker his HP is, the more dangerous he'll become with his fixed damage. So yeah, be aware of that. And then let's talk about his unique skills. So he has 3 skills as usual. So let's see what they are. So the first one is a 2C skill called Blood Spike Deathblade. It's a 2-turn cooldown, 5 blocks, 3 lines AoE, and by the way, all those skills names I'm showing here are probably just rough translation. They're not really official translation from the global side of the game, so bear that in mind. So his 2C skill is an AoE attack. Attacks all enemies in 3 straight lines. dealing 0.16 times AoE damage, and the amount of range is 5 blocks long. Okay, and then as well as inflicting 1 random debuff to each target that he hits. If this attack scores a crit, or like doesn't matter how many are hit as a crit, reduces the skill's cooldown by 1 turn and automatically casts again. The repeat cast does not trigger this effect again. After combat, Sharikh can move again up to a number of blocks Sharikh has moved before the attack. So this is like a Night of Mysteries style when it comes to move again. So in case you guys don't get what I mean, is that Night of Mystery, whenever after she attack with her AoE attack or any skills in general, she's gonna be able to retreat with the same amount of movement she did, which is super helpful. And this is inherited to Sharikh. It's a 2C, which is called Scythe of Malice. It's a passive skill. After dealing fixed damage to an enemy, steals 1 buff from them and applies 1 random debuff on the enemy. Oh, pretty nasty, don't you think? And then last but not least, we got the 3C skill called Bloody Premier. It's a 5-turn cooldown, 3 blocks, 2 blocks AoE, and the passive part of this skill is that at the end of your turn, if Sharikh did not deal damage, he gains the effect all terrain is treated as plain terrain while moving for 1 turn. And now let's talk about what this active part of the skill does. So this one teleports him to the target block, then deals 0.3 times AoE damage to all enemies within 2 blocks. Inflicts the following on each target. So you inflict those like those effects called like the accessory effect disabled and healing block, or heal block I would say. Both effects last for 2 turns. Sharikh gains Curtain Call's gift. And what this does is that when Sharikh dies, deals 0.25 times AoE damage to all enemies affected by Agonized Cackle, and inflicts accessory effect disabled and heal block for 2 turns. So basically it's the same thing, but only when he dies. This effect lasts for 1 turn, cannot be dispelled or immunized. When a target is a non-player hero, the accessory effect disabled is replaced by damage taken increased by 30% for 2 turns. Pretty interesting replacement. So yeah, so far Sharikh is pretty nuts, but however he's not really like that like I would say not as powerful as Rapier, because Sharikh doesn't do what Rapier does, which I mean I guess that makes sense because they don't want these two to be similar to each other in any way. I mean this has been like this for the entire game. So yep. Anyways, moving on, let's talk about what his balance requirements. So for his own bonds, he'll need Abishai or Abby for his defense bond, and for his attack bond, he needs to be in his cavalry class. As for the others, he's not required for others in any of their bonds, so that means that nobody will need him, at least for now. And once again, like Rapier, I'll update you all if I find any more info about if they are needed in the future. But as of right now, they don't need anybody at the moment. As for the uses, he is a decent unit to use in PvE, and for PvP, he is an AoE menace, of course, kind of like Varelia, and he does buff stealing, which makes him somewhat good, and also at the same time, it could be like a 50-50, like being good or bad, depending on what buffs you steal, because honestly, you do not want him to steal a tank effect, like for example, like take the hits for allies. You honestly don't want to steal that, because that basically makes Sharikh a big target. But however, even though it may sound bad, but however, since he does do some AoE damage after he dies, I could see that not a bad idea. Because if he dies on the field, he's gonna do a lot more of a problem for your opponent. So basically, he's a death bomb, essentially. But of course, not meant for kills, but allowing your other units to finish off the enemies. Now, do I think this is worth it? Well, based on your current roster, if you think you need this guy, I would say yes. But if you already got units that can do jobs that are like somewhat better or more of your preferred style, I would say maybe you can hold it off for now. But however, let me explain why I think that way. Because he is an excellent addition, but this mostly favors AoE rushers. So in case you guys can't tell, he is an AoE unit most of the time. So AoE rushers are gonna be liking this. So I would say yes for those guys, but to those of you who are single target rushers, I would say maybe hold on to this because you probably don't want to pull for him yet because there are also other units we can pull for in the future that are probably more worth it than him. But yeah, like especially we're gonna see like a new collab coming soon, but it's not confirmed in CN just yet. But we do know that the next collab is gonna be Alir Ryza 3. And speaking of that title, that game is gonna get re-released in the form of three installments. Like there's the first one, second one, and the third one of Alir Ryza games. Will be available on most of the platforms I play. Some of you guys may think, will I be playing that game too? Like just like what I did with Trails in the Sky First Chapter remake? I don't know. I've had to check the price. I haven't seen the price yet. I think it could be fair, but I'll see and decide if I want to get it. I'll let you guys know if I made my decision about that in the future. So tune in for that one in the community post if I find any news about this. Now, in this update, there's actually another unit that we need to talk about because this character got a new SP class. Yup, you heard that right. It's time to talk about what that new SP hero is. That SP hero is none other than the demon lord himself, Bozel. Yup, Bozel is getting his SP in this update. So, who's excited for him? Honestly, I am excited because he's one of the units I do use a lot on the Blade Inferno account, which is the Dark Team only account, and he's gonna get his SP. And also, fortunately for all of us, the SP stones are now universal. So even though if you spent your crystals to get the heart of desire, you don't have to worry about that being a waste because now that one will carry over to the next and also new SP heroes in the future. So if you need a stone reserved, then that's a good time to do it. So let's talk about what SP Bozel does in his talent. So his SP talent called Dark Lord, which will ignore skill costs when you equip skills, which is pretty nice. And also, even though he as a demon, he doesn't really care about what class he is because his talent prevents the class advantages of any form. Replaces his own int with 1.5 times of his own MDef, which basically is the same thing he does in his original form. When using a skill, if there are enemies in the field with 4 or 3 debuffs, their positions are all treated as within Bozel's skill range, and ranged soldiers will also attack. After dealing damage to an enemy, applies 1 random debuff to a target. So this alone, as long as your opponent doesn't do like a debuff immunity, Bozel is gonna shine in those type of scenarios. But however, if your opponent is prepared with with Ilya or Rosenseal, he's not gonna be able to do much in that kind of battle. So Bozel is like a 50-50 helpful and maybe not helpful in some scenarios. So as long as your opponent doesn't have like the debuffs immunity stacks like Ilya's Axiom or Rosenseal's Crystal Barrier, you're pretty much Bozel is gonna be doing pretty well on that kind of battle. So if you want to use Bozel SP effectively, I would say ban those two as your top priority if you want to make use of him. Well, of course, at the same time, your opponent could probably foresaw that and gonna try to secure at least one of them. So just beware, and also beware of Liana as well because of her 3C also does this as well with her 3C, but only on 1 unit. And as for the new soldier, he gets the Spider Demon Elf. And speaking of which, to make it even better, if your Spider Demon Elf got SP, this will actually make him pretty formidable opponent. So if you have Spider Demon Elf SP, it will make him pretty good. But of course, I don't think the class manager will matter because he already ignores it. But if you have Spider Demon Elf, that's a huge improvement for him. I know I'm repeating this, but I'm just gonna let you guys know. So the 2 SP skills he has in this one when you fully finish his path. His first one is a 2C skill, which I guess it won't matter much because the costs ignore on his talent. It's called Breath of the Alhazard. And it's a 2-turn cooldown, 2 blocks, and it's a single target. And this does magic damage, attacks 1 enemy, dealing 1.6 times damage. Before combat, applies a special terrain effect, Shadow of Chaos, to the enemy's current block. that lasts for 2 turns. The terrain's defense bonus is reduced by 20%, and when an enemy moves onto this special terrain effect, they receive 1 random debuff at the end of their action. And this terrain effect has a high priority when overlapping with other terrain effects. And now let's talk about his other skill called Chaos Tide. It's a 5-turn cooldown, 4 blocks, 3 blocks AoE. And what this does is that it attacks all enemies within 3 blocks radius, dealing 0.36 times AoE damage, covers converts 1 buff on each enemy hit into a random debuff, and applies Chaotic Rave onto the affected enemies. Any buffs gained are converted into random debuffs, and Chaos Wave cannot be dispelled before other debuffs, and this will last for 2 turns. So Chaotic Rave is somewhat similar to the stacks of the stacks immunity, but however this has no limit. So like if you have a lot of these, then yeah, good luck dealing with all this. I mean, you can of course dispel it, but however these will be prioritized first before other debuffs. So yeah, this will make Bozel extremely annoying to deal with. So let's move on to the next thing, which is the new SP soldiers. Dark Alchemist we got this time around. So what they do is that of course their normal attacks are treated as magic. After taking action, 30% of soldiers' HP is restored. When soldiers' HP is above 80%, attack is increased by 30%. When using ranged skills during combat, skill range is increased by 1, and soldiers will also attack. And now let's talk about what heroes you can get additionally on here. We got Lena, Young Jessica, Girl in the Shell, Serena, and Kaguya. Now let's talk about the other SP soldier we got here, Ghost of the Fog. And just like the Dark Alchemist, normal attacks are treated as magic. And when entering combat, soldiers' attack is increased by 30%. If soldiers' HP is above 70%, gains physical damage taken minus 20%, and unit ignores class advantages. After combat, soldier recovers 45% HP. So yeah, this soldier, the Ghost of Fog's SP makes them more usable. Like with the ignore class advantages, that's amazing to have. And as for the additional heroes that can use this soldier, are Licorice, Randall, Cortez, Hiei, and Gizaroth. And last but not least, we have Bandit. Yep, the classic Bandit soldier. They're getting SP here. And what their effect is that soldiers' crit is increased by 30%, soldiers' attack is increased by 25%. This unit ignores melee damage penalty. Pretty straightforward. Basically, they will hit harder and also they ignore melee damage penalty. And sadly, there aren't any new heroes going to be able to use this. So it's still going to be the same lineup when you unlock this. And also, fortunately, when you unlock the SP, you're not forced to spend your controller points, because all it does is just the only reason you want to spend those is for the additional heroes. But since these ones do not add more heroes, you can literally get this free without need of using controller points, because you absolutely don't need to. Okay, I gotta catch my breath. Moving on, let's talk about the banners that we're gonna get for this update. So bear in mind that these banners may switch around for global, so be aware of that. And then for the banners, the first week we're expecting are of course 2 new heroes. Rapier and Sharikh will be on the first week. It will be last until the one day before Christmas, or this is a Christmas Eve. Like Christmas Eve, that's the exact day it will end. And then on second week, starting on the 4th of December, actually wait, hold on. The first week will start on November 27th, which is like a couple of days after my birthday. And then the second week begins on December 4th, and you'll get Tiana Radar banner alongside with Makara, and then the Wish banner for Langrisser 1 to 5 heroes. On week 3, we have a Zerida with Z2, I would say Sword Line Shadow, and Selga on the Radar banner. And then Destiny banner, we have Broken Wing Bird, Prezia, and Sapphirine. And also the Wish banner for Langrisser Mobile Arc 1 and 2. This will begin on the 11th of December, ending on Christmas Eve. And then on the last week or fourth week of the major update, starting on December 18th, and you'll get two Destiny banners. First one is for Girl in the Shell, Rosalia, Patricia, and then the other radar banner, which is a classic recurrence, which includes Elwyn, Leon, and Bernhardt. And then the Wish banner for Tensei heroes, some Tensei heroes, not all of them, by the way. Now let's move on to the next part, is what events/changes to expect. So what we're expecting here this time is the event of Endless Voyage or Endless Voyage coming back in this update. And as for the live improvement, this was actually seen in CN, but we already got those early on. So what those two features are is that the restart feature is already in the game. So how do you access it? Well, if you're in battle and if you mess up at any point, you can just go on retreat and then press reopen. That's where it will return back to the preparation screen on the fly, which is pretty neat. And also matchmaking for Apex Arena already got implemented as well. So yep, that's already there. So yep. Next up we got is new confession and exclusive. So the new exclusive we got this time is for Sapphire, which is her weapon. Increased by 10%. The harmonic spirit initially gets the effect, which will basically make them untargetable by enemies' normal attacks and skills. However, they can still get hit by AoEs that are not directly targeting them, but against line AoEs. This effect is lost if there's an enemy within 1 block at the end of the action. The terrain occupied by enemies within 3 blocks are treated as grassland, and this effect cannot be dispelled or immunized, and it will be removed at the end of your next turn. And the harmonic spirits can also be retrieved by other harmonic spirits instead of just Sapphire. So what this means on the last part is that after they end their turn, the harmonic spirits can actually choose to absorb the other harmonic spirits and inherit the skills that they have. So initially you can have those spirits with more than one skill. But however, if they're both identical skills, it will just simply refresh the skill back to no cooldown. And now for the new confession in this update. This time is for Gay's Succubus, or known as LR Ferrakia. And next up we got are the new casting skills, 2 new ones. First one goes to McLean. Yeah, the first one, when attacking enemies in water, McLean deals 15% increased damage when casting Lord of the Stream skill. If McLean is already in water, he can move 2 additional blocks and attack again, which will allow him to do some quick action immediately, because in the past his 3C only allows him to proc twice but no follow-up. But with this casting, that will fix that flaw. So do I think McLean's gonna be back in the usage rate, in the usage pool? I'll say it really depends on the current situation, because as of right now, McLean kind of got in the rust spot when Lemia came in the game. So I think this still applies. So I don't think he's gonna be putting a dent in meta at all. But however, with this will make him kind of tricky and throw your opponent off guard potentially. Next up we got is Captain Mac. And funny enough, both of these are aquatic units. So Captain Mac is an interesting one to have on here, even though he is a limited unit back in the day. I don't think anyone can obtain it anymore unless they brought this back as another event. But as of right now, I don't think anyone can obtain this anymore. And what this casting does is that it increases his attack by 5%. The route marker applied by talent gains +1 command range. While within the command range of an allied route marker, the terrain which Captain Mac occupies is treated as water, which is super useful for Captain Mac users. And before we go, I'm going to give you guys a reminder of what's going to be coming up next after this one. So the next major update will be featuring the 7th anniversary major update, which will bring Han Baba into the battle with the new origin buffer. So if you're very interested of getting this character, I would say save up for her, because she is going to be amazing for Origins of Light teams. Like, I think Origins of Light has been in the shadows for a while now, but with her coming on board, I could see a lot of fun things going on with her. And also, Humbaba herself is pretty strong, so you may want to reconsider if you want to pull for her. But other than that, if you really care about Rapier as a character, or you just like her like being like a tank buster, I'll say this banner is not bad to pick up. So anyways, that's it for this video. So hope you all find this video helpful and informative, and I apologize for the long rumbling on certain parts of the video, but hey, there are a lot of things that are worth pointing out. So yep, that's it from me. So see you all next time for more. And don't forget to subscribe for more, of course.